Hello, welcome back to the Breaking News Update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you're watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a huge lineup of news that I'd like to brief you all on today. So, we've got a lot of big headlines coming out from this war. We're going to start off talking about Ukraine taking revenge onto Russia. So, if you all remember, this past Sunday, we had that horrible strike that was carried out inside of Sumy. This is a city in northeastern Ukraine. We talked about this a lot over the last couple days. And Ukraine is taking revenge right now. So, yesterday, they went after Russia's 448th Missile Brigade in the Kursk region with drones. Now, just today, we had Ukraine going after Russia's 112th Missile Brigade that you can see right here on your screen, and it says over the recent Sumy strike. This is video footage coming out from that area. This is up in the Ivanovo region, northeast of Moscow, probably another 100 kilometers past Moscow, and pretty far away from the Ukrainian border. So Ukraine was using a lot of these Lyuti drones that you can see here in the video. This little compilation of all the attacks happening in that area. I think multiple drones were hitting their targets over there and directly striking this base. So you can see here on your screen also, in Russia's Ivanovo region, drones attacked the 112th Missile Brigade, which according to Ukraine's Defense Intelligence, or HUR, was responsible for the missile strike on Sumy, killing 36 people. So from what we understand, there was two brigades that were involved in these attacks. It was the 448th Brigade in the Kursk region yesterday, and also the 112th Brigade up here in the Ivanovo region. They are both directly responsible for those attacks in Sumy. And they regularly carry out strikes inside of Ukraine using Iskander ballistic missiles. Okay, so we're going to go over all those details there. I'll show you guys multiple videos and photos coming out from that area when Ukraine carried out these attacks. And we've also got some information that Kherson, down in southern Ukraine, was heavily attacked with guided aerial bombs. We also had an ice arena down there that was completely destroyed. I've got lots of pictures and videos coming out from there, even Odessa getting hit very hard. And also very big news today that we're going to do a separate video on it most likely later today. We're going to talk about a new missile that Ukraine has unveiled. Okay, they're calling it another rocket drone or rocket missile. I guess you can refer to it however you want, but it's kind of similar to the Palinitsia, I'm assuming, or maybe the Peklo drones. But they're claiming it's a new missile that they've unveiled. Okay, so we'll talk about that later today. But I will show you a quick post on that. So let's go ahead and jump into the news, guys. We're gonna hop on over here to X with Max24. Drone strike on the 112th Brigade of the Russian Missile Forces in the Ivanovo region. They struck Sumy and killed civilians. Okay, so we're going to start off with this one video here. We've also got a couple pictures of smoke clouds after these drones were striking this 112th Brigade facility. Okay, so go ahead and take a look at this real quick. All right, so as we can see here in this video, this Lyuti drone definitely hit its target. Looks like maybe it was going after what looks like maybe a barracks, some sort of large building. We can see here in the photo, looks like a red brick building, and I have some photos coming out here in just a moment that I can show you guys of the effects of the damage here to this one building that was directly struck. Okay, so we've got a couple photos here that we can show you as well. Here's smoke rising from the 112th Brigade camp over here in the Ivanovo region. Here's another picture as well showing another major smoke cloud. So I believe it was hit by multiple drones, at least one for sure. And some of the angles that we have, it could be the same drone. It was recorded from different parts of Ivanovo, but definitely was hit at least with one drone on this facility, maybe more. Okay, so here's another one from Astra. Explosions were reported in Russia's Shuya, Ivanovo region. Okay, this is the town where this missile brigade is located at, in Shuya. With smoke visible in the city, according to local residents, the moment a drone crash was captured on video. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this other video as well. We've got another photo we can show you also. So let's take a look at this.
Блять, он прям к нам!
Okay, so very frightening video here. You can see that drone coming in, and I don't know if this is the same drone that we were just watching earlier. It looks like it could be, but it's a little hard to tell because there's a house right here that's in the way. But definitely something was struck over here in the city of Shuya, okay, at this 112th Missile Brigade Center. Here's a picture coming out also showing what looks like maybe two smoke clouds. Looks like we might have one here and another one. So definitely something burning right there because that smoke cloud is black. This one being white right here. Maybe the drone landed in open field at nearby or something, or maybe it was shot down. Who really knows here? We'll move on to another update. Max 24 declared as a consequence of today's UAV strikes, a UAV strike on the barracks of Russian 112th Missile Brigade in Shuya. Okay, so we've got a video of a Russian soldier walking around inside of one of these barracks and showing the extent of the damage. We got a couple photos here we can show you also. Let's take a look at this real quick.
Наша казарма. Ёпта, блядь. Все, что от нее осталось. Ух, ебать.
All right, so we can see this barracks here completely destroyed by the Leody drones coming into this area. And we can see also when this man walks into this room, we've got a Russian soldier standing right there looking out the window. We can see a massive fire breaking out over here on the side of the building as well. Okay, so definitely huge damage being done to this facility. We've got a couple of photos we can show you here also. This is the side of the building. You can see all the windows being blown out here, some damage to the side. You can see actually some of the debris from the drone that fell right here also. And here's a really good photo showing the Leody drone. It's kind of hard to pronounce that sometimes, but this is the drone right here in the photos, okay? So lots of damage here being reported on this facility. We'll go ahead and move on to another update now. Now I've got some other things I want to show you guys as well. This came out today from Max 24, and he just says Kursk. So I did a little bit of research on what this was here, and from what we understand in the Kursk region, or the city of Kursk in the Kursk region, we had a massive fire breaking out at a manufacturing facility that I believe produces bearings for multiple companies across Russia. Lots of mechanical parts or products inside of Russia uses these bearings, and somehow there was some sort of explosion. We don't know if it was a sabotage or some sort of freak accident. Maybe there's some sort of explosion, something went wrong in the facility, but there was an explosion initially, and then soon after we had a massive fire here breaking out on this bearing production plant. Okay, so if I get more information on that, I'll let you guys know. If we happen to find out maybe that was Ukraine that carried out that strike, or maybe it was some sort of explosion on the inside, okay? Now for Max 24, 4 Russian bombs destroyed the ice arena in Kherson today, okay? This is again in southern Ukraine. And Kherson gets bombed almost every day and constantly getting hit by artillery shells. But we had an ice arena completely destroyed over here. You can see the pictures due to guided aerial bombs that were being dropped from the Russians, okay? And I actually have some videos coming out on that here right now from War Translated. While recording a message to the residents of Kherson, the head of the city military administration, Roman Morochko, sorry, it's kind of hard to say, came under enemy fire. He just stood up and continued his address, okay? So we have the head of the city military administration, Roman Morochko. I'm having a hard time pronouncing his name, but he's just kind of addressing the citizens of Kherson, letting them know that they're standing strong, and all of a sudden you're going to see an artillery shell start to come in near his location and explode, and it scares him, and he drops to the ground, and then he gets right back up and keeps, holding on his with his address to the citizens. Take a look at this.
Вітаю вас, шановні херсонці. Сьогодні зранку у нас знову щойно був ще один приліт артилерійський. Як ви бачите, було декілька прильотів кабів, а саме по попереднім підрахункам 4. Знаходжусь зараз в Таврійському районі, де є 2 постраждалих, тому ліквідовуємо наслідки. Віримо в нашу перемогу. Вітаю вас.
All right, guys, can you imagine that, standing out here in a parking lot? All of a sudden, we've got an artillery shell coming in. You can see he knows it's coming. He dives to the ground. That explosion lands very close next to him. And he gets right back up and continues recording. And you can see that he's definitely very worried and scared there. I'm pretty sure he thought at one moment maybe he was going to lose his life, but very proud statement for him to be holding here for the citizens of Kherson as they endure these horrible strikes pretty much every single day. Okay, and we've got new video coming out here today also. And I do apologize, this post does have some profanity on it. I will not read it, but it will be on your screen for you. UA Voyager reports, this is how the Russians attacked Kherson today without hesitation, just residential neighborhoods, a city where 80,000 people live, and the world just keeps watching and thinking. So this is video footage coming out today of massive strikes inside of Kherson. We'll go ahead and revert it back here. Looks like it replayed, but we can see multiple bombs being dropped here in this area. I'm not sure if these were dropped on that ice rink that was incredibly destroyed today in Kherson, but nonetheless, we can see here a massive attack in what looks like a residential neighborhood inside of Kherson, okay, in southern Ukraine. So Kherson getting hit very hard today. Very unfortunate situation for the Ukrainians there. Now from Anton Gerashenko, the only thing that saved us was that we were in a room with no windows. Russia massively attacked Odessa with drones last night. Shahed drones damaged civilian infrastructure, residential buildings and warehouses, local authorities said. 3 people were injured, okay? This is out of Odessa now. In Odessa, we report at least 2 or 3 times a week they're getting hit by Russian drones. I think we had somewhere close to 100 drones going into Ukraine last night. So this is the damage to this man's home. He's going to show you how horribly destroyed his home was due to Russian drone attacks last night in Odessa. Take a look at this.
Сьогодні ночі був наліт шахідів. Нас врятувало тільки те, що знаходились в кімнаті, де не було вікон. Вікна позалітало, порозбивало, повиносило вікна порізало все. І ми зараз, на жаль, залишилися взагалі без житла. Яке руйнування у нас і буде.
Я написала вниз про...
All right, guys, very sad to have to report this coming out of Odessa in southwestern Ukraine. But again, we do report Odessa being hit a lot, and I want to show you guys the evidence of what Russia's doing to the Ukrainian civilians here. Many people's homes being destroyed, many times people losing their lives. So this man completely lost his home. You can see that he, at one point, he also says here, the only thing that saved him was being inside of a room with no windows, okay? Imagine being next to windows. It wouldn't be a good idea with these explosions going off, right? So we'll move on to some other updates now from Null Reports. Ukraine has unveiled a new cruise missile, called BARS, a domestically mass-producible missile drone with a range of 700 to 800 kilometers. Its key advantage, scalable production for frequent strikes deep inside of Russia. Okay, so it's just a little picture being put out here. I believe this could be the Palanitsia drone. I'm not sure if this is the actual one. I'll show you guys a report on that later, and we'll show you like a photo that kind of depicts what this missile is going to look like. But from what we understand, it's like a cruise missile, but could be partly a drone as well. And this is the Peklo drone right here also that was recently unveiled a few months back also with Ukraine. So we'll be talking more about that later today with this new BARS missile that Ukraine has unveiled today. Now from next, Russian armed forces use Shaheeds with poisonous substances for strikes on Ukraine. A capsule with concentrated combat poisonous substance, CS, was found. This is a highly toxic substance of irritating action. So these are the Shahed drones, and we've already been hearing that Russia, sometimes puts like They'll put small fragments of metals inside of these drones, so that way when they explode, they do massive damage to anybody, in the surrounding areas. Also putting thermobaric warheads, so that way the flames can go through walls, through windows, and burn people inside of homes. The Russians are doing all kinds of crazy things with these drones right now, and now they're talking about CS being put in these as well. This is from the Center for Countering Disinformation on Telegram. The enemy uses Shahid-type kamikaze drones equipped with poisonous substances to strike Ukraine. The center verified this information with the Special Services and the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. It is known that a capsule with a concentrated combat toxic substance, CS, an irritant, was found in one of the UAVs as a highly toxic substance with an irritating effect. And you guys can let me know about this. I believe this is like CS, like tear gas, right? I would think it's kind of similar to that. But from what I understand, CS is an aerosol, so it does irritate the eyes, your face, your skin, things like that. Enemy UAVs can scatter capsules with a poisonous substance in order to harm people. However, the information spread by some media that the bodies of Russian drones themselves are treated with poisonous substances is not confirmed. Okay, and I've never heard about that before, that the bodies of these drones being treated with poisonous substances, but apparently the interiors of these, with these warheads, when they explode, the Center for Countering Disinformation out of Ukraine is claiming that the Russians are putting CS irritants inside of these to cause more bodily harm and damage to anybody, even if they're not directly affected by the explosion from these drones. So pretty insane news there. Now for Max 24, the Verkhovna Rada voted to extend martial law until August 6th. Okay, so just today, Ukraine's parliament extending martial law, extending mobilization until August 6th. So they are preparing for the long haul with this war and understanding that this war is not going to end anytime soon. So in the meantime, they're extending mobilization and martial law until August 6th. Now for Max 24, again, Rubio and Witkoff are expected to travel to Paris later this week. Witkoff is set to meet Macron, while Rubio will speak with Barrot, according to Politico. Two sides will discuss Ukraine, Iran, and trade relations in the wake of Trump's tariff threats. Okay, so this is where Marco Rubio right here, the U.S. Secretary of State, and Steve Witkoff, the special envoy of the Middle East, who is in direct talks with Russia, representing the U.S., so this is where they're going to be. They're going to be heading to Paris, okay, to speak with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and also Jean-Noel Barrot, the foreign minister of France as well. Okay, so just a quick update on where they're going to be heading to. Now for Max 24, again, Latvia withdraws from the treaty banning anti-personnel mines. Okay, so I want to say this could be all the Baltic nations now that have withdrawn from the Ottawa Treaty banning anti-personnel mines. We already know that Lithuania and Poland are going to start mining their border. I mean, this just goes to show that Europe is definitely worried about Russia attacking them. And, if you're any of the frontline nations like the Baltic nations, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, also Finland, and even Poland, I would definitely start mining my border if they're definitely worried about that, which it looks like they are. And now Latvia withdrawing from this, they're going to probably start mining their border with anti-personnel mines as well. Okay, so huge news today. Now from Nexta, Lithuanian Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrys believes that Russia will hit Ukraine on Easter, and this will prompt EU countries to tighten sanctions against Russia. The politician said that the tragedy in Sumy became an incentive for the EU countries to take bolder steps in support of Ukraine. Also, Kęstutis stated that Russia may carry out a brutal attack on Ukrainian cities on Easter. Okay, so we've got the Lithuanian Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrys coming out and warning that coming up on Easter Sunday, I believe that's this Sunday, right? We could potentially see Russia carrying out another brutal attack onto Ukraine, probably similar to what happened in Sumy. And if you notice here, like, why does Russia have to do things like that, especially on those types of holidays? Why does Russia feel the need to have to do that? And that just shows, how much Russia really does not like Ukraine, especially if they want to have symbolic attacks like that. So will this happen? We don't know for sure. I think he's kind of just estimating or guessing that maybe that Russia will do this. But you guys let me know what you think. Do you think Russia will carry out a brutal attack on Easter? Share your thoughts and concerns down in the comment section on that one. Now from next again, the president of Poland reacted to Russia's claims. President Andrzej Duda stressed that NATO is purely defensive alliance that responds to aggressive actions by Russia. This is said by Russia, which is relocating its nuclear weapons to Belarus, brazenly bringing it closer to the borders of NATO and the European Union. Russia, which is behaving aggressively towards NATO and implementing its brutal and bloodthirsty imperialism, attacking Ukraine for 3 years, President Andrzej Duda noted. So here's a report today coming out from PAP, and it says here Russian misleading disinformation. President on the words of the representative of Russia. Okay, so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, what he's referring to is yesterday I put out a short here on YouTube for you guys talking about Sergei Narishkin. Okay, he's the head for Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, and he came out basically warning NATO and saying that many NATO nations, especially on the borders of Belarus and Russia, are pretty much escalating the war right now. They're putting out a lot of actions that is could potentially force this war to go out much longer, to continue on down the road and not end sooner, which we're expecting this war to end sometime this year, hopefully. So he's basically accusing NATO of aggressive actions, and that that Russia may have to take a preemptive strike onto NATO. This could start a war between NATO and Russia. And Andrzej Duda coming out today and just basically saying that Russia's just full of it, and that it's them that are carrying out all the aggressive actions, not NATO. NATO is a defensive alliance, so kind of defending NATO's position as a defensive alliance. Okay. Now, from the Ukrainian Review, war is big money and big business, and all those factories that are working and all those people that are making money, Putin will not be able to stop it, says Zelensky. Okay, this was a statement that came out from Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, today, basically just stating that Russia's not going to be able to end this war. Okay, they're too far deep into this. They've got their whole manufacturing sector set up to continue a war for probably several more years, assuming that their economy can maintain it. And so far, up until this point, although Russia's on rocky grounds with their economy, they're still able to fight this war, and they've got a lot of support from North Korea as well. We've been talking about the fact that North Korea is supplying like 50% of their ammunition needs. So, I mean, with North Korea helping them out, it's helping them stay in this fight, right? So Zelensky's warning that Russia's still in a stable position to continue fighting this war. Now, for Bliskovka, the United States will not conclude any agreements with Russia or lift sanctions on it until a ceasefire is reached, said U.S. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce. Bruce also stressed that after the shelling of Sumy on Palm Sunday, more questions should arise about who really wants peace and a ceasefire. Okay, so good question there at the very end of this statement. More questions should arise about who really wants peace and a ceasefire. Is it Ukraine or is it Russia? We've seen Ukraine already coming out and saying they're ready for an unconditional ceasefire with Russia. Russia basically rejected that, and now they're dragging out negotiations, and they look like they're in no hurry to end this war. So she's got a point there. But also the big news here is stating that the U.S. is not going to conclude any agreements with Russia or lift sanctions until a ceasefire is agreed upon between Russia and Ukraine. So we'll see if the U.S. actually holds up to that and they don't hold any agreements or maybe do any kind of economic developments between the two nations before any ceasefire happens. We'll see what happens with that. Also from NOAA reports again, Japan to provide Ukraine with 30 more SUVs. The Japanese embassy reports 6 of them already arrived in Poland on April 10th and were handed over to Ukraine. Okay, so we've been talking about Japan a lot over the last couple of days. Japan just really stepping up big. They're also sending some of these SUVs over, armored SUVs that Ukraine can use on the front line. And I think it was just yesterday we had reports that they were planning to get more involved, helping out with training Ukrainian troops as well. So very big news coming out from Japan. Now from War Translated. According to Andrei Kovalenko, the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, Russia plans to deploy North Korean fighters to the front lines in Ukraine, manipulating the Russian constitution, which unlawfully includes foreign territories. Kovalenko also stated that Russia is actively promoting what is essentially forced labor from North Korea. Primarily young people aged 18 to 25 are brought to work at enterprises. With Russia paying the North Korean government around $1,000 per person, while the workers themselves receive only a fraction of this amount. What a horrible deal that is, right? So several things being stated here. It looks like we could potentially have confirmation of North Korean soldiers fighting on the front lines inside of Ukraine, not just in the Kursk region, but actually in Ukraine here very soon, if that happens to be the case. And also, when it comes to forced labor and North Koreans sending their own people into Russia, we just talked about that yesterday. I showed you guys a video of huge lines of women that were all dressed in the same suits. If you guys remember that video of people wearing purple, they were all women supposedly working inside of Russia that North Korea basically leased out their citizens over to Russia to allow them to work inside of the facilities. Producing weapons for the war in Ukraine. And just imagine, if they're not really making any money, is it really worth it to them at the end of the day? I guess they don't really have a choice if they're being forced to do it, most likely, right? But you guys let me know what you think on that. Now from Nexta, North Korea's involvement in Russia's war in Ukraine got profits more than $20 billion for its economy. Without Chairman Kim Jong-un's support, Vladimir Putin would not actually be able to wage war in Ukraine, said Hugh Griffiths, former UN coordinator for sanctions enforcement against the DPRK. Okay, so yeah, we've been talking a lot about this. I just mentioned this earlier that we know North Korea is supplying about 50% of Russia's ammunition needs in this war. So if it wasn't for North Korea, would Russia be able to wage war against Ukraine? Maybe highly unlikely, right? If that's true that North Korea really is supplying 50%, I mean, that's a significant amount of ammunition. Russia probably would run out by now if they weren't able to keep up with that amount of ammunition needed for this war. And yeah, so very big statement coming out today. Let me know what you think if North Korea was not helping out in this war. Now from next, Russia asked the USA for permission to buy Boeing airplanes at the expense of funds frozen. During the peace talks on Ukraine, the Kremlin has asked the White House to authorize the purchase of U.S. Boeing airplanes at the expense of central bank assets frozen due to the invasion. Bloomberg quoted a source among Russian officials as saying, here's a report today. Russia asked to buy Boeing jets with frozen assets in U.S. talks. Now, I thought this was interesting because just yesterday there was a report that we didn't share with you guys, but maybe you heard about this, was that, with the ongoing tariff war right now between China and the United States, China retaliated against the U.S. and basically told all their airlines to stop deliveries of Boeing jets coming out of the U.S. to basically strike in the heart of U.S. manufacturing of Boeing being a very big company inside the United States. And now all of a sudden Russia's coming out and saying, well, we'll buy Boeing jets. Okay, that's fine. We'll use frozen assets to purchase these. And I thought that was interesting. The timing of this, within 24 hours, now Russia's willing to do that. Is that a response to China actually cutting off the deliveries of Boeing into China? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You guys can let me know what you think. But that was an interesting story coming out today. Now for Vicegrad 24, The Economist reports that Pentagon officials have reached out to an unspecified allied state, telling them to put an end to their continued arms supplies to Ukraine. The allied state rejected the request. Some Trump aides are reportedly fed up with Europe's Ukraine support. Okay, this was a very interesting story coming out today. Also, we know Europe is very supportive of Ukraine, and the U.S. with Trump being in office now is a complete 180 from how things were with Joe Biden. Trump just does not want to support Ukraine anymore. I've got lots of posts talking about that today. And reportedly, he's fed up with a certain allied state. Let me know which country you think that might be. Maybe Great Britain, maybe France or Germany or something like that. Probably one of those bigger nations that are supplying a lot of weapons over to Ukraine right now, and reportedly they rejected the request to stop sending military aid. Okay, so we know Europe is not going to change their position anytime soon. They're going to continue supporting Ukraine, and maybe Donald Trump is unhappy with this because he wants this war to come to an end. And maybe Russia has their own demands. They have come out multiple times stating they want the Europe to stop arming Ukraine. So maybe it's making it difficult for negotiations with Russia, and that's probably why Trump is doing that. But you guys can let me know what you think on that. Now for Max 24, Trump was said to have been rankled by the events of that Sunday, not merely Zelensky's royal visit, but the sight of Europe hugging him close, according to Politico. A UK official said Trump's team didn't like the look of it, the way of the whole love and landed, and suggested the U.S. reaction pushed Britain toward putting more pressure on Ukraine to come to the table in the days that followed. Zelensky freshly enraged, Trump at that Sunday evening by holding a 72-minute interview with journalists in a small room at London's Stansted Airport just before he left the UK. In it, he said a peace deal was still very, very far away. Some officials believe that this was the trigger that prompted Trump to halt military aid to Ukraine barely 24 hours later. Okay, so what they're referring to with this is around the time that we had the whole debacle with Zelensky here visiting Donald Trump in the White House, and then they basically got into a huge argument. It blew up, and then Zelensky basically was kicked out of the White House. Soon after that, he went to the UK and immediately was brought in with open arms by Keir Starmer, and they were taking lots of photos, and it was a complete show of like how Europe is very supportive of Ukraine, but the U.S. is not. And then soon after that, many European nations started coming out on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, and putting out major statements of show of support for Ukraine and love, although at the same time the U.S. was showing that they're not supporting Ukraine. So looks like Donald Trump was not very happy with that visit, and it had something to do with military aid from the U.S. being cut off to Ukraine just 24 hours later. We did whole reviews and topics on that, videos on that several weeks back when that happened. Now for Max 24, Trump refuses $50 billion deal. He does not want to supply Ukraine with weapons, even for money, according to Bild. Despite Ukraine's urgent need for Patriot systems and missiles for them, the Trump team is not even interested in the possibility of selling these complexes. Okay, so this was a picture coming out from that feud and argument that happened weeks back. But this is very big because Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky right here was calling for purchasing like $15 billion in Patriot systems directly from the U.S. And then just the day before that, over the last week, he also came out and said he wanted to buy $50 billion worth with actual cash of U.S. military aid, military equipment. And looks like Trump is even saying, we're not even going to send anything to you even for money, okay? And maybe this could be due to making it more difficult to end this war is, if the U.S. comes out and says, okay, we're going to go supply $50 billion of weapons to Ukraine, how is Russia going to respond to that? So is the U.S. just trying to stay in the middle here? Are they trying to side with Russia? It's really hard to tell what's going on here, but a lot of people feel like the U.S. is siding with Russia more than Ukraine. Now from The Informant, breaking, Russian President Vladimir Putin was abruptly called back to the Kremlin, arriving at approximately 11:20 p.m. Moscow time on April 15. This was last night. His motorcade was observed moving swiftly through the capital, though the reasons for this sudden recall remain unclear. No official statement has been released by the Kremlin as of now, fueling speculation about potential developments. So this was the video coming out last night showing Vladimir Putin, the Russian president's motorcade, rushing to the Kremlin once again. I've probably shown this at least 4 or 5 times over the last year. This happens pretty frequently late at night, so I'm not sure what was going down. But usually, after these videos come out, we usually see nothing happening. So I'm assuming there's probably nothing majorly big going on inside of Moscow. But something called Vladimir Putin back to the Kremlin very late last night, around 11:20. Now for Max 24, the Russian army is preparing to intensify assault operations in the Cherniv and Sumy regions in the summer. 8 new areas of responsibility of troops are being created in the direction of Sumy, Kharkiv, and Cherniv, according to Ukrainian soldiers. Okay, so I showed you guys this community post yesterday, but I wanted to briefly go over this and let you know about it in case you didn't see it. We do know that the Russians are going to be launching some sort of offensive up here near the Sumy region, Cherniv region, Kharkiv regions. These are all in northeastern Ukraine, and Russia wants to open up a brand new front over there, especially after they, for the most part, not completely, but partially kicked out Ukraine from the Kursk region. So they are gaining the upper hand here a little bit and could launch a major offensive in that area. So be expecting that here in the short term. Now from the Kyiv Independent, Italy transfers $28 million to restore Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The funds are part of a broader 200 million euros, around $227 million initiative co-financed by the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or EBRD. Okay, so Italy coming out big, $28 million to help out Ukraine with their energy infrastructure today. So big news coming out from them. Now for Max 24, the U.S. has scaled back its repayment demands from Ukraine, lowering its aid estimate from $300 billion to about $100 billion in recent talks, according to Bloomberg. Deal still aims to recover aid through fund profits. U.S. insists wartime expenses count as contribution to the fund. Okay, I thought this was interesting because right at the start of these negotiations of, the U.S. calling for wanting, rare earth minerals out of Ukraine, and we had Trump coming out saying that the U.S. had sent $300 billion in aid to the Ukrainians, not $100 billion like Zelensky was claiming. Now all of a sudden, the White House is stating, okay, well, we only sent 100 billion. We didn't send 300 billion. So was Donald Trump lying about that and just trying to get some major profit or some sort of deal that was just outrageous? What is going on there? But I thought that was interesting. All of a sudden, the U.S. now coming out saying, well, now you only owe us 100 billion. So let's go ahead and get this deal going. Maybe they're trying to lower some thresholds a little bit to get Ukraine to agree to a deal. But I thought that was a very interesting topic coming out today. Now for Max 24, again, Ukrainian air defense shot down 57 out of 97 Shahed UAVs, 34 drones suppressed by electronic warfare. Here's the total drones going into Ukraine last night, 97 Shahed Russian UAVs. Well, they're made in Iran, but Russia's firing these into Ukraine, that is. But yeah, 97 total going into Ukraine. Looks like they shot down about half of them, and 34 more suppressed by electronic warfare, also most likely being brought down. Now from the Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of April 16th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. All right, guys, so our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of April 16th, 1,050 troops, 13 AFVs, 133 vehicles and fuel tanks, 9 tanks, 87 artillery systems, 146 UAVs, and 3 special equipment. Okay, so what I'm noticing today, not too much being destroyed really at all. Only just a little bit over 1,000 troop losses here for the Russian side. 13 AFVs, a little bit lower than normal. 133 vehicles and fuel tanks, about average number. 9 tanks, about average. 87 artillery systems, a little bit higher, more than normal, I guess, is on more around 40 to 60 on average. So aside from that, yeah, we've got some equipment being destroyed on the Russian side, but nothing too crazy today or significant. But lots of huge news, and it looks like Ukraine really trying to go after these missile brigades right now inside of Russia that are responsible for the horrendous strike on Sumy last Sunday, on Palm Sunday in Ukraine. So maybe we're going to be seeing more of this, but it looks like Ukraine definitely wants revenge for that, and especially imagine if Russia really does carry out another crazy strike again this coming up Sunday on Easter. That could be absolutely horrible if that happens to be the case, and Ukraine is probably going to want more revenge as time goes on. So expect major strikes inside of Russia over the next few days to continue on. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in for this update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.